Hello, this is Stan Standridge, and I'm presenting this week on week 386, and we're going to discuss incident command as it relates to a mass casualty incident. So I'm going to start over here on my right. So I have got three different zones, zone 1, 2, and 3. We're going to start in the hot zone, ultimately migrate to a warm zone, and then eventually in the cold zone. So I want to point out real quick, as it relates to police and fire, we're going to approach this very differently. So notice that police are going to start first in the hot zone. Eventually, so this is going to last probably about 5 to 7 minutes. Eventually, 7 to 20 minutes, we're going to be in the warm zone. And then as senior executive staff, etc., arrive, you're going to end up in the cold zone. Please recognize that the fire department is going to do exactly the opposite. The fire department, through staging, is going to come into a cold zone. So they're going to start here. They will eventually end up here. And then they will eventually end up in the third zone. But now by this time, since law enforcement will have already been in and neutralized the suspect, and because law enforcement's present inside the structure, they will ultimately go in there. So they'll eventually go in there as well, but that's where they're ultimately going to finish. So I'm going to take this, just imagine these are stores, and these are cars parked in the parking lot. And this is a large store here. It's just a retail store. So time of call, like 9:35 this morning. We received multiple calls from a dispatch center indicating that a white male was seen going into the store armed with a rifle. He began shooting. People began fleeing. There's a casualty outside who's not mobile. There are multiple casualties inside. What is our response? And I'm going to do this really quickly. First of all, when the officers receive this response, we actually want them to stop, pull over, don level 4, grab their rifle, charge their rifle, make sure it's on safe, get their go bag, which has extra ammunition and medical equipment. If they have a shield, grab the shield, grab any breaching equipment that they can carry, not with their hands, but with their equipment. And then go to the actual crisis site. Statistics show law enforcement is getting shot a third of the time in responding to active events, and they're getting shot upon arrival and approach. So there's no such thing as arriving, calling time out, let me get ready for the fight. When you arrive, you need to be ready for the fight. So already have pulled over, got all your stuff together really quickly, and then get to the scene. If this were the actual store, you're not going to want to pull right up. We're not going to block ingress. We're not going to block egress routes, because ultimately ambulances are going to come here. And we want to be mindful of cover and concealment. But we do want to park closely, because remember, the goal is to quickly stop the killing. So in this case, the officer parks here. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, because I think we all understand that we are ultimately going to arrive and we're going to stop the killing. A couple of key points here, though. When that officer arrives, please give an LCAN, location, conditions, actions, needs. So, Unit 100 dispatch, I am at the Alpha Bravo corner. So we're going to use building configuration. A side is always the main side. And then you're going to go clockwise, A, B, C, D. So I'm at the Alpha Bravo corner, Adam Boy corner, whatever phrase you want to use. That's my location. Conditions. I see multiple people running. I have a casualty outside the store. I will be entering the store. That's my action. Needs. I need all follow-on responders to come to my car and link up with me inside the store. I have command. So it's very important. So in the hot zone, the first 5 to 7 minutes, when law enforcement arrives on scene, he or she, the solo officer initially, they have incident command. Hugely important. We have to establish command, and it's not inferred. We have to actually say it. So give your LCAN, and then immediately follow up by saying, I have command. And then go inside and stop the killing. All right. I think we all got that, because we've been focusing on this for years. Here's where it gets a little fuzzy when we get into the warm zone. Let's say this officer, another officer, perhaps 3 or 4 officers are now inside that retail store, and they've found the threat, they have neutralized the threat. Remember, 98+% of the time, these threats are alone. The other 2% of the time, they're together. So once you find a threat or the threat, you have usually found all of the threats. So the focus is no longer on clearing the store. We're not worried about that. Once you've neutralized the threat, the focus is now flipping the coin to stop the dying. That's where this warm zone, phase 2, is incredibly important. So this is what it's going to look like. Once they say, hey, the suspect is neutralized, one of you has got to stay outside of the structure and establish incident command outside of the building. So it's a key point. We're going to ultimately call this point, let's say it right here. This is an FCP. FCP. It's a forward control point. A forward control point. That's simply a fancy way of saying that that officer who arrives outside after the suspect's already been neutralized and he parks right here, he is going to ultimately assume command. Remember, only one person can be in command at a time. So the IC is now taken from that officer and it's now pushed over to warm zone, and whoever is outside the structure now takes command of this incident. They now have incident command. This person who remains outside, located within sight of the store, so they have situational awareness, this person has several key priorities. First of all, this person needs to give an updated LCAN, and then secondly, say, I have command. So they assume command, and then they need to immediately say, dispatch, give me a fire liaison at my location. Because this is what we want for that 7 to 20 minutes. The reason being is we've got to get fire and EMS into this now warm zone to save these casualties. And your goal as an agency is to get all of these casualties off the X, so to speak, in 30 minutes or less and to surgical treatment. That's the only way we're going to save them. So this dance needs to happen really quick. So this IC stays outside. He asks for a fire liaison. Now they have command, and they are going to say, okay, we ultimately need a couple of things to happen inside of here. These officers are going to need to be asked, hey, focus on the casualties. So in this case, if the casualty is out here, there's a casualty here, casualty here, casualty here, they need to consolidate the casualties if they're not already. If they're already consolidated, don't move them. We don't want to move the casualties a lot because the more you move, the ultimately more you kill. We want to consolidate the casualties, and then we want to really quickly move to get additional officers inside so that we can provide security, so that we can then work with our fire liaison. By the way, where's the rest of the fire department? They're out here in the cold zone. They're out here somewhere. Let's say fire could be as far away over here, staging. They do this all day, every day. They're over here. So what we want is, we want all of the officers now, once we've got this security set up, we want all officers from outside agencies. We want DPS, we want the sheriff's office, we want constables, whatever. We want them to deploy to staging. Very important. So you're working with your fire liaison, you're directing all additional responders out here to staging. Otherwise, you'll have an over-convergence of first responders in your crisis site, and that is not what we want. So these officers are inside, establishing a casualty collection point if necessary. They're consolidating, and now they say, hey, we need fire and EMS to come and get our casualties. Remember, our goal is less than 30 minutes. So those outside responders who went to staging are being paired up in what's called RTFs, Rescue Task Forces. RTFs. These RTFs are then coordinated through your command, your police command, and your fire commander. They're coordinated to ultimately go into the warm zone. When the RTFs are inside and they're starting to provide the triage treatment, then the next thing is transport. So you would ask, you'll be talking to your fire liaison and say, okay, we're ready for ambulances. The ambulances are going to back up literally right here. They're going to back up as close as possible. That's why we do not block ingress or egress ever. Ultimately, RTFs are inside. However many teams you have, it's typically 2 firefighters and 2 police officers minimum. They're inside. they're going to actually extract the casualties to the awaiting ambulances, and they're going to be off the X in less than 30 minutes. All right, so this plays out relatively quickly. It gets really fuzzy when you start to contemplate what is this. This is when your senior level people, when your police chief, your fire chief, your city manager, your emergency manager, all of them start to arrive. Eventually, they're going to assume command. These people will stay here. They're going to be designated as operations, ops. They're located at the forward control point. So they're ops. But wow, these people have command of the overall incident, and that's where we get unified command. So, command started over here, incident command. Eventually that person is relieved. When this person is relieved, designate these people that are inside the structure as contact team 1. Just say, okay, this person has arrived on scene. I have command. You are now designated as contact team 1. Roger that. I now have command. Give me my fire liaison. Send all outside agencies to staging. Ultimately support what's going on in here to establish a casualty collection point, and then work on getting your RTFs and your ambulances backed up so you can load and go. By this time, the head shed is all arriving. Ultimately, you're going to transfer command. They're going to have a unified command to this group right here. And they are going to, in turn, designate them as operations. Though they will still be focused on the crisis site. What are these people doing? Well, they're working on your inner perimeters, their outer perimeters. They're working on 24/7 staffing. They're working on EOC. They're working on staff notifications. This becomes a critical piece for managing the 20 minutes plus. They're going to have to manage across multiple operational periods. So, hope that makes sense. I know it's the quick down and dirty. If you get a chance, also review the policies as it relates to what your agency has adopted. Thank you.